So, you finally accepted the quest to become a brand new DM. You got your session ready, you got your basic gear ready, and you have a group of willing volunteers, victims, for your first session. But before you go, let us give you some tips to make the beginning of your journey a little bit easier.
So hi, I'm Eddie. Welcome to another episode of Middle-Aged Barbarians.
And I'm Eugene. And today we'll be talking about some tips to help get you started to becoming a brand new DM. Now, I do want to make a quick distinction between running a pre-made adventure and starting a homebrew from scratch. We're going to start with the pre-made stuff, and then later on we'll talk about homebrewing. So, Eddie, what would your first advice be for somebody who wants to run a pre-made adventure?
Well, first of all, I recommend you read the whole thing. Read it once, try to catch it all in, and read it again, but now keep in mind the perspective of the players. Try to keep in mind what the players are actually seeing, which is not the whole picture. The adventure that you read has a whole picture. Even sometimes at the beginning of the adventure, there are major spoilers that your players should not know about. So keep that in mind. Keep the spoilers to yourself and reveal them at the proper times. And, well, have fun with it. And just start putting the content, try to repeat the content of the adventure when the players should actually read it and not just all at once. Remember, this is a slow burn thing. You have to give it time, let it breathe.
Also, keeping a journal is really advisable. I mean, I know there's many times when we're dealing with the story, with the campaign, and on the spot you have to improvise a name or make up an NPC. So keeping a journal for all the things that your players have done, the people they meet, the places they go, can also help.
Yeah, and a lot of the times you should also keep a list from the actual content that is already in the adventure, so everything is related. You can go as deep as your campaign needs. Sometimes you don't need that much depth, but it does ruin the immersion when somebody that you called John the first time, you'd call them Steve later on. I mean,
hey, all your bartenders are called Bill.
Yeah, for instance.
That's not that cool.
That's not that cool. And sometimes the players do get to attachments to something that you made up on the spot, and you end up developing like the orc mascot that they captured that they end up making their manservant. I mean, that
sounds interesting.
Yeah, that sounds controversial. Well, that's the stories for every time. I mean, it can go in unexpected places. So it's important to keep notes of everything.
Another big thing, it's easy to forget, but you are the DM. So if you need to modify anything that's written down in the adventure, you can change monster stat blocks just to fill the flavor up. Like if you want to have them fight gnolls, but gnolls are too strong, then you can give them goblin or kobold stats. You can add different skill checks. You can remove traps. You can modify what's there. I mean, it's not written in stone, so feel free to do so.
You are the complete authority. And yeah, like Eugene said, and also the same as social stuff that happens in the game. If you know that this very important social scene that takes up a big chunk of the adventure will not work with your party, which is more of I want to just fight things, well, keep it shorter.
You could do a montage.
You can do a montage. Yeah, montages are cool, and they're not just for movies or action movies.
Some adventure modules bring pre-made characters. These are already built characters that are all blocked out, and you can give them to your players so they can choose. I think it's important to let them look at them first so they can pick the ones they feel more comfortable with and they would want to play throughout the adventure.
Remember that most of players like yourself are pretty new to the rules, so sometimes just giving them the stat blocks or the general gist of what they are is not sufficient. You have to give them something else. Perhaps in just saying, oh, this is a level 1 rogue with such and such stat, you can say, oh, this character is a very sneaky spy.
And he likes using daggers and opening locks and give them a little bit of insight into the abilities that the characters have.
Yeah, and try to also guide them into building a synergistic group, because making groups that are all, for instance, all rogues, well, usually does not work out. Or it could be a very interesting adventure, but keep it simple at the beginning. So now we have to talk about homebrew, which is the more advanced thing. Everything, or not everything, a little bit of it, not even a little bit, none of it has to be original, but you can make it yours. What I mean by that, you can instance take, I don't know, which universe would you like to play in?
Oh, I'm a big fan of Ravenloft.
Yeah, Ravenloft is a published setting. And it's pre-made adventures, but you can also make something. There's, for instance, there's in Ravenloft, there's a part that it's based on France during the Revolution, the French Revolution. Before the French Revolution, with the aristocrats and that, you can play.
That sounds so much fun.
Well, for me, I mean, with powder wigs, I mean, who wouldn't want to be with powder wigs and pistols? Or there's like or for instance, something weird like, I don't know, Mayan. How would you make a Mayan adventure?
Mayan homebrew would be. Well, there's one called, I think, Mastica.
Oh, that's pretty old, yeah.
I think that's an Aztec. It's more of an Aztec-based campaign.
Oh, I wouldn't. Yeah, pre-Columbian. I wouldn't expect much distinguishing in between.
Well, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Homebrew just basically refers to you as the DM. You're going to write up a story. You're going to have like the path the players are going to walk. You're going to have an obstacle, a challenge, maybe like just one big bad guy at the end. Or maybe not even really the big bad guy. You're just going to have like just an enemy, a slight nuisance to get them started off on the right path.
Yeah, and you can go as deep as you want. But remember, same as like we said about reading the adventure several times, you should go only as deep as what the players will see, unless you, for fun, choose to go way deeper. But a lot of youngish DMs, myself included, a few of our friends have done that. They go super deep. They even write practically their own campaign settings, full booklets, and they end up just like the players just end up, I don't know, going to a bar and setting up shop at this actually happened to me. Rather than doing the whole adventure I planned for them, they just went and decided to become the defenders of the first town they went to.
That was it.
That was it.
You wrote hours and hours of political history and
didn't matter.
The economic systems, everything.
Didn't matter. You just ended up setting up shop there, and then the adventures were more of the adventure came to them. So we played a couple of sessions of them defending the city against outsiders. I mean, it was different but fun. But had I just done just a small little town, the rest of the content would have not been wasted. I mean, but it's cool. I mean, it's fun for me. Yeah. But keep that expectation in mind. You can be a little bit disappointed if not all of your content is used. Because remember, at the end of the day, the players make their choices.
And I think one time when we played with you and you did the whole homebrew, your original campaign, another option, because we had talked a little bit before about pre-made characters. You can still kind of do that, right? I mean...
Well, I've done that, yeah. I made like, I don't know, for a party of 5, made like 10 characters because I also like making characters for fun. And, okay, these are the 10 characters. This is a rough description of who they are. Choose whomever.
I think that kind of helps because you can kind of tailor their backstories and it helps a little bit to get them going and getting on purpose.
Yeah. For instance, you can make them have like actual relationships in the world. Like, oh, these 5 characters are cousins. This one campaign we did, it was inspired in Arabia, and they were all like from those societies with hundreds of children and very complicated genealogies. They were all cousins. That's why they were all together. They were cousins that were in a caravan. But they had like different interests, they had different backstories, even different species because none of them were fully human, but they were cousins. And that's the justification for them being together. So yeah, you can do stuff like that. It's very, very cool. But it's a little bit more advanced than just following the path.
And it can be quite time consuming.
Yeah, making stuff up is consuming. But you don't have to fully make it up. You can also grab inspiration from stuff that's already published. I mean, there are campaign settings, official and non-official campaign settings, which give you a whole world to explore. They also have their own pre-made adventures, or you can build them up there, like in the setting like Pathfinder and Golarion is very extensive. That's time for a Pinkerton alert, isn't it? Or take inspiration from your favorite book. I mean, I don't know, for instance, I really, really like A Wizard of Earthsea, which has a very different magic system than the traditional Dungeons and Dragons system. So maybe I could even change a small rule for stuff set up in that campaign setting. It has the rule that I would change is that everything that you do with magic has to do with words. So everything has a verbal component. Everything has to be spoken. That would be something that you could do. I mean, you can even change a little bit the rules, but not too much. Because if you change them too much, it almost gets a different game, and you lose a little bit of control. So where else would you grab inspiration, Gene?
I guess like maybe TV shows, movies, and stuff. Like nowadays, I really love the idea, and I may have mentioned this before, like having that modern day feel with a mythical beast mixed in with modern day society, kind of like Bright. There was a
that movie
with
Will Smith.
With Will Smith.
Yeah.
Onward from Disney. I think that's a great cartoon.
Yeah.
That mixes those kind of things. But really, if you homebrew, it's up to you to do whatever you like, whatever you want. And like Eddie said, just keep it simple at the beginning. Don't go overboard. And you can actually learn a lot from your players, from what they're doing, and that'll help you add more stuff into your experience, your campaign, your setting.
Yeah, that's important what Eugene said. Remember the players. There's this thing called railroading, which is when you try to write it as a traditional story, a traditional narrative. It is not. It is you just set up the framework, the players do the work, you react accordingly, and they do things that you consider dumb or...
Like sitting at a bar all day.
Sitting on a bar all day, hiding in the sand all night to ambush a dragon. That's something I did. It made complete sense for me, but they're still messing with me about that. I mean, part of my powers were to survive the elements, so I just hid in the sand to ambush the dragon. Makes perfect sense.
Perfect sense.
Yeah, perfectly rational decision making. That's what Dungeons and Dragons is all about.
Yeah.
Okay, just to recap, you have to basically do 4 things. Read the whole thing a couple of times. Keep in mind the perspective of the players when you read it. Keep a journal. Keep notes of everything important that happens for quick reference, even the new stuff or the stuff that's already in the pre-published campaign. Remember that you can modify anything you wish. You can change the rules a little bit. You can even build the whole thing. This is called Homebrew. But in the beginning, when you're working with a pre-made adventure, remember, any little change you can make, it's allowed. And you will respond to what your players want. And speaking of players, have pre-made characters ready, so your players have a quick choice and you can go right into the action, rather than going to the longish, very fun, but slightly more complicated process of making your own personal characters.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because next episode, continuing with how to be a DM, we're going to talk about Session 0, its benefits, precisely for character creation, and talk a little bit about the types of players you might find playing at your table with you. So remember, leave us your comments, suggestions, complaints, anything you want in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe for future content, and we love you. We like you. We love you. We're still deciding.
We're working on it.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Roll the dice! Bring it!